In 1985, I answered an ad for one of my favourite musicians, Vince Clarke. I was a huge fan, and I got the job, and we started a band called Erasure, and I was put on a retainer for £150 a week for the first 6 months. So we were in the studio together, and I could not believe I was with him. In the beginning, I was not quite sure how you came out in music, so I did go to a gays in rock seminar, which was at the ICA at the time. So I spoke to Tom Robinson, and I said, how do you come out in music? And he said he wore a pink triangle on his coat, and so people asked him about it. So I thought, oh, so I'll just be truthful when they ask me, do you have a girlfriend? I'll say, no, I've got a boyfriend. I'm gay, and just make it an everyday thing. Being in the record industry, you don't really realise, I was a huge Boy George fan. I loved Annie Lennox, but I didn't think about being androgynous as such, so it was hard to know what to do, so I kind of took my cues from drag queens, basically, like how to deal with crowds. Our first video, I insisted we were in drag, and it was kind of this end of the pier type drag. It wasn't very appealing to an MTV audience. So fair enough, the record company said, oh, would you mind wearing a t-shirt and jeans for the next one? Or this was sometimes. So I said, sure, okay. But it worked, it was like the James Dean-ish thing. So then we became almost two characters. One was for TV and one was for live shows. I'm a typical Taurian, so if anybody tells me not to do anything or to do something, I'll do totally the opposite. My favourite ever costume, when I was told to camp it down, was a Vivienne Westwood pair of 12-inch high heels, red PVC shoes, and a pair of Calvin Kleins and a little vest. I found out in 1998 that I was HIV positive, and I kind of knew it inside. I'd been holding it back and not admitting it to myself, but I knew I was getting poorlier and poorlier, so I went to the doctor. My previous partner had been HIV positive as well, so it was kind of a bit of a mind screwing thing. So I went to see the doctor and had a great experience, started taking the pills. It was like a miracle. In 2004, I came out with my HIV status online. A bit scared, I was really scared, nervous about it. And then on the very first show that we did, Erasure, when we came back, the whole audience stood up and clapped. And I was like, really in tears. I just couldn't believe it. I was like, it was really a lot. It was a bit too much. I was saying, oh, you can sit down now, sit down. I mean, I can't really believe that it's such a big thing, to be honest. I would have thought, oh, everybody's honest. To me it's the easiest thing in the world. And I just think, like, why can't people just be straight with each other? That's basically it. And there's nothing to hide. Don't hide. It's all bollocks.